Shalom. So today we're gonna understand the difference with emotions and feelings, right? So we need to first understand that the body emotes. So emotions are things you experience in your body. Feelings, on the other hand, comes from your thought, right? So when you have a situation or an event, right? Your body is going to emote. That's going to be the first response to the event or the situation. And this happens on the external, right? This happens outside. So that sensation you experience in your body, that is called the emotion. Now, for example, let's think about anger, right? Where does this really come from? What happens, right? Sometimes we have resentment, we have pain and hurt and all of that. So in the body, we experience this anger, right? So when an external situation or event triggers that pain or hurt or whatever it is, we respond with anger, right? Now different people deal with anger differently, but we're dealing with the cause, right? And where it is experienced. So this is a bodily, this is a physical thing that you experience. It's called an emotion, right? Now, fear, the body and the mind, they have two different consciousness, right? The mind has its own, the body has its own, and sometimes they are not in agreement. For example, sometimes you will be in situations where your mind is telling you, no, this is not good for me. But the body is familiar with it. It has its own consciousness and it likes it. So the body is saying yes. And we get confused with what we're feeling and what we're desiring and so forth. Right? For example, think about a person in an unhealthy relationship. At the mental level, the person, the woman or the man will know that, hey, this person is not good for me. It's always a downhill. It's always something terrible happening in the end, right? But the body remembers the good things and the sensations and the pleasure and all of those things. So it's a war. So this is why sometimes we make choices that we can't understand why do we make them even though we know that what the outcome would have been, right? So yes, the mind and the body are not always in agreement, right? So fear, think about fear. You see a certain thing out there but you don't really know. I'm going to give you an example. When I was a child, I had a neighbor that was a rasta, right? So I was walking from my house to go over to my grandmother. When I went outside now, I saw a lion, right? I saw a lion. Now, understand, I'm in Jamaica. There are no lions here on the road like that. But he was just standing there. I couldn't go forward. I couldn't run back to the house. I was just stuck with all these sensations going on inside my body, right? To see a lion ahead of me. Now I stood there for a while, and then what I saw happened was that lion stood up on 2 feet. Now the reality was it was my neighbor, the Rastaman, bend bent to tie his shoelace. So his locks came over his head like that, and that picture of the lion that I was seeing sent it sent all those different sensations, those waves through my body, right? And I was in a freeze um moment, right? I couldn't run, I couldn't do anything, couldn't fight, nothing, right? So fear comes from this not knowing. You don't really know what it is. Your mind cannot figure it out, your body cannot tell you what it is, right? So we experience that fear in the body. Now, cold. Cold is a sense is something you experience bodily. It's either by the it's like the an event happening outside, right? So if you're out in the snow, or if the temperature is just different from what you're accustomed to, you're gonna experience that. This is more physical. Sick is the same thing. You experience it in your body. No, when you're dealing with feelings, this happens after the emotion, right? So when an event or situation takes place, the first response is going to be your body. No, what you tell yourself about the situation or the experience, that is where the feelings come from, right? So these things happen in the mind, the emotion happens in the body, right? So feelings are more subtle. For example, disappointment. When you experience disappointment or something like what we would say a betrayal, you feel betrayed, right? This happens in the mind, right? Because what? The mind, whether conscious or subconscious, it has a expectation. When that expectation is not met, the feeling of disappointment comes in, right? So if you're expecting that, okay, this person um, is not a cheater, if you believe that and expected that, when that does not happen, the feeling of disappointment comes in. If you spend time with your child to go through, college, university, and everything, you check the books in the evenings, you go through works and so forth. But when the time comes for the exam results, the child did not pass, you're going to experience the same disappointment because you had an expectation, right? No, shame is the same thing. It's from the what happens in the mind, right? Because if you do something, right, but you know that it is wrong, right? You're gonna feel that shame to know that you really did this and you knew better. It's the same thing for the guilt. So the disappointment, the shame, the guilt, they come from the stories that we create in our own minds, right? Emotion comes from the experiences we have in our bodies, physical, right? And these come from the external events, situations, and so forth. So it's important that we understand feelings and emotions, what takes place in the mind, what takes place in the body. This is why sometimes some people will tell you about what happened, like in a relationship, let's say, right? But all they can speak about is what the other person did. But if you ask them how they feel about it, they really don't know. They really never took the time to understand their feelings. They never took the time to understand what they are really feeling and why they are feeling it. They never really took the time to understand where exactly they are feeling what they are feeling, right? It's always pointing towards the other person's action, but we never really go towards what we are really feeling, right? So understand the difference between the emotions and the feelings. One is physical, one is more mental. Shalom.